Hey everybody, welcome back to Bookends. He's Jason, this is our buddy Teaser. I'm Chucky. We're over at the Sunset Station, STN Sports Studio, filming another segment of the weekly gambling podcast Bookends. It's great to be back, Jay.
No, another week in the books, and this week just gets even better as we go into the Major League Baseball playoffs, and we're a week away from NHL hockey, so and I know we've had a lot of football to talk about, so excited to get right to it.
Well, let's dive in with baseball. I mean, God, San Francisco and L.A., I mean, unbelievable, right? San Francisco wins 107 games. Dodgers win 106 games and are only the wild card team. They have to win last night on a walk-off, 2-run home run, cover the run line. So you run line bettors were smiling. We weren't. But really, this is the way it's supposed to be, these two teams. The first time that since they moved to California that they're ever meeting in the postseason. I think it could be epic. You look at these two teams. San Francisco won the series, the 19 games, 10-9, but the Dodgers outscored them 80-78. Maybe a little bit of a negative for the Dodgers is that Scherzer probably won't go till Game 3. Luckily that they ended it the way they did because they didn't have to use Urias, so they can kind of start it now, with a couple of big guns to start with before you get to Scherzer in Game 3.
Yeah, and it's crazy that this is the matchup that we're going to see in the NLDS in a 5-game series because this has got an NLCS feel to it. It's actually got a World Series feel to it with obviously 107 and 106 game winner with Tampa being third in that 100-game winner. So I think this series though is missing some major pieces. You talked about what happened in the regular season, how tight these games were, but both of these teams are missing their leading home run hitters. Brandon Belt hurt for the Giants and Max Muncy hurt for the Dodgers. So two big bats coming out of the lineup. Obviously some major acquisitions at the trade line, and the Giants getting Bryant and the Dodgers getting Scherzer, and those guys are going to play a big part in this series.
Scherzer and Turner.
From a 5-game set, it's going to be very, very important, how this stuff rolls out right from the beginning of the series, and we'll see how these bullpens perform. I think the Dodgers, for the Giants, McGee has been out on the DL for the last several days at the end of the regular season. They've had Duvall closing out games, so we'll see on the back end for the Giants what they do with their bullpen. I think is going to really make a difference in the series.
Yeah, I think we'll do a huge handle on these games, and don't forget we're going to have a lot of props on the board as well. So both over the counter and mobile app, there'll be a number of different ways to bet this series. I agree with you though. This almost has kind of a World Series feel to it. It's a shame that it's in the NLDS, but hey, it's still going to be a great series. These two teams don't like each other. They're both in California, and again, Dodgers 106 wins and really had a battle to even play this series against the Giants. We're going to touch on some of the other series as well. I think it's fun that they met each other, and then now meet each other, and now in the American League East, you've got Tampa and Boston. Because they're in the same division, they played each other a lot during the regular season. Tampa and Boston played each other 19 times as well, with Tampa winning 11 of those 19 games.
Yeah, and one of the things that we saw there was that in the 8 wins for the Red Sox, they averaged over 8 runs a game in the games that they won, and 3.6 runs in the 11 losses.
So if you like Boston,
you like
Boston and over, guys.
Again, J.D. Martinez, we'll see what happens there. If he can get back in the lineup, he obviously missed the wild card game against the Yankees. Boston, to get over that hump and be able to knock down the Yankees in the wild card. Obviously, Cora's got that team. They got to feel really good about themselves right now.
Third time in a row, dating back I think to early 2000, I think 2001 or 2, that Boston and New York have played in the postseason. The Red Sox have won all 3.
Yeah, and we know the names of all the Boston guys. It's Tampa. As you turn on the TV and start to watch these games, you're going to get yourself familiar with these Tampa players, and we're going to see McClanahan in the first game and Baz pitching in the second game. They've got a bullpen loaded with guys. It's going to be interesting to see if they pitch anybody kind of over 3 or 4 innings to start their games, and you're going to see them troll out a bunch of incredible relievers to try and shut this team down. And obviously a 100-win team in the American League, the Rays are favored there, but this is an interesting series.
Totally different philosophy the way Tampa runs that pitching staff. The other series I think too we should touch on is Milwaukee and Atlanta. Not being in the same division, they just played 6 times during the regular season, and they split 3-3 with the visiting team winning the series on the road.
Yeah, strength of Milwaukee Brewers is obviously their pitching staff. going to be able to run out kind of a 1-2-3. And Atlanta, we've talked about several times off air that if you really look top to bottom, that Atlanta lineup, even with Acuna out of the lineup, is one of the most dangerous lineups in all of baseball. So kind of looks
what
like
a shame
pitching.
that they're going to be missing him. Like you talked about the Belt and Muncy and now Acuna too. Some of the best players in the National League we're not going to get to see play in the postseason this year.
Yeah, but for the Braves, Riley, Duvall, Swanson, they're kind of guys that you would consider are role players. They haven't been role players here in the second half for Atlanta, and kind of stormed to come back and catch and pass the Phillies and the Mets to win that division kind of in easy fashion. So this is kind of an offensive versus defensive matchup, and again should make it interesting from that standpoint.
I think the other one that's going to be kind of cool to watch is the White Sox and Astros. I mean, both these teams are really good. They can score a lot of runs. White Sox pitching a little bit iffy. These two teams played 7 times during the regular season, but Houston kind of dominated that regular season matchup, winning 5 of the 7 matchups.
Yeah, when I looked at this matchup, the one thing that came to me is that this is we'll call it old school. Well, not even old school, just old managers. In Dusty Baker versus Tony La Russa.
I love it though.
Two guys that have probably I don't even know what the numbers are.
They're a bit fiery too, so who knows what can happen in that series.
But to watch these guys go off in a series and throw wits at each other, it's going to be super cool. And again, this is another matchup of teams that have won a ton of games, teams that can absolutely hit the home run, good pitching, good bullpens. The White Sox picked up Kimbrel from the Cubs kind of at the end of the year. So if they can get Kopech, Kimbrel, and Hendricks on that back end.
They get healthy too, right, with Robert and Jimenez kind of coming back during the second half. So it helped them a little bit as well.
When you talk postseason baseball, though, it normally comes down to pitching. It's who can get guys out
and managing.
Yeah.
I think that's a big piece too. And these two guys,
and the White Sox set themselves up well. They made some moves to hopefully give themselves the ability to make a run by having a really good 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guy.
So I think it's going to be fun. Baseball is this is the fun time of year. I know we talked about during the regular season there was so much disparity between the good teams and the bad teams. These are all good teams now, and if what we saw over the last couple of days with Red Sox, Yankees, and Dodgers Cards is any indication, I think the postseason is going to be pretty cool. Well,
and the betting public did well in baseball. I mean, after the second half of the season, you talk about the Giants and Dodgers, winning over 100 games apiece, and they were betting those teams every given night, kind of picking on
who do they bet now?
Picking on the Diamondbacks and pitting on the Rockies and the Orioles and those bad teams. So the separation of good and bad kind of separated itself pretty early, and so guests have been cashing a lot of tickets in baseball, and they'll look to do that in the postseason. And obviously, these first 2 games, Yankees were heavily bet in the first wild card game, and Boston was able to get there for the sports books. And the exact opposite happened last night, as the Dodgers were heavily bet, in particular on the run line, and right. Taylor's 2-run bomb sealed the deal to cash a lot of tickets for the public there.
Yeah, I think the one last thing is with the Giants, a team that no one really expected to be here, opened up 100-1. So from a liability standpoint, it is somebody we'd be rooting against, but there's a lot of guests out there that are holding tickets with the Giants at a pretty good price right now to win it all.
Yep, and look for a lot of props as well. I think Chucky made mention to the fact that we're really going to explode the menu, so look for your pitching props, look for your player hitting props, your home run props, all those alternative run lines, alternative totals. We'll have all that stuff up on each game and in play, so throughout the game, be able to bet throughout each inning totals and all that stuff that's going on there as well.
I'm really looking forward to it. I love postseason baseball, and I think this year it's going to be really cool, especially with those 2 teams at the top in the National League. That kind of touches on baseball for you guys. We're going to come back in the next segment of Bookends and jump into pro football. We'll be right back, guys.
What's up, everybody? It's me, Stephen Money. It's football season, and I want you to know that you can bet on me, the STN Sports App. So sign up today and get started with me, the local favorite.
Hey, everybody, we're back for another segment of Bookends. We're going to dive into pro football now. But first, Jay, we got to talk about last week. I mean, that Patriot-Bucks game was crazy. I know we talked about 2 weeks ago how we were lighting candles and praying for the Raiders-Dolphins game. But this game, for me at least, and I think it is for you as well, we kind of talked about it, this is the largest bet regular season game that I can remember. It was almost Super Bowl-esque the way the money came in on the Bucs against the Pats that night.
Well, again, it just set up so perfectly as a Sunday night game with Brady returning to New England
and the record,
going for the passing yards record, and the Patriots haven't been a dynamic offense in any way, and the Bucs coming off the loss to the Rams that the public was all over the Buccaneers, laying them as a touchdown favorite, and we needed the Patriots for a big number, and really didn't win our share of NFL games again last week. We were lucky to get the New York combo in the morning with both the Jets and the Giants pulling money line upsets over the Titans and Saints respectively. Those were the big wins for us. But again, Dallas beating Carolina, the Chiefs beating the Eagles, Packers beating the Steelers. Those were all kind of bad results on the sportsbook side of things.
Knowing that it's not just Nevada anymore. I mean, heard unofficial kind of some numbers industry wide or throughout the country, ridiculous numbers of everyone was kind of in the same boat rooting for the Patriots that night. So they really did help, I think, across the board that night.
And then Monday night was a helper for us as well with the Chargers knocking off the Raiders and obviously knocking them off by 14 points. We did have a lot of people that had Raider teasers taking them up to plus 10, and the Chargers were able to knock those down. But they're ready again this week. The bets are already flowing in and on some matchups this week, and their public's ready to go trying to beat the books again this week.
All right, well, let's talk about those games. First, we're going to talk about the Rams and Seahawks out of the NFC West. And at first, I have to throw out a kind of a good. I know it's a different segment, but good has to be the Arizona Cardinals, the only team in football right now that's 4-0. Kind of a big surprise. They could have lost to Minnesota. Minnesota missed that 38-yard field goal to win it, but they are 4-0. They play in the same division as the Rams and Seahawks. Numbers starting to tick up a little bit. About 68% of the tickets are on the Rams. We touched on it last week with Seattle being a dog, traveling to San Francisco. Russ had never lost 3 straight games. In his career at Seattle, he didn't disappoint. And the bettors backed him in that game, and they won that game. They're going against a Ram defense. Rams come off a loss to Arizona, but the betting public has really backed the Rams in this one so far.
McVay was 8-0 against the Cardinals, hadn't lost to him in his coaching career at the Rams, and obviously the Cardinals were able to pull that upset last week. I'll throw out a stat for you in this game. Pete Carroll, since he's been with Seattle, has played 11 times on Thursday night. Seattle is 10-1 in those games and have won the last 9 straight.
Interesting stat. I think these two teams might have met last year on a Thursday night as well in an epic battle. So we'll see. But the public is backing the Rams so far in this one. Also, just as a reminder, too, guys, the next game we're going to talk about is the Falcons and Jets. And guess what? It's back to an early game in London. So make sure you set your alarms or come out to the books. We'll be open at 6 a.m. So 6:30 a.m., Jets and Falcons in London. And the Jets are coming off a win.
Yeah, please get your bets in. Prior to 2 a.m. Saturday night,
you could use this.
If you're getting
STN Sports.
If you're getting up at 6:30 in the morning to watch the Jets and Falcons, you better have some fantasy players on that team.
I want you getting up early to watch the Jets and Falcons and bet them.
You're trying to build that bankroll early in the morning to get set up for the 10 o'clock games. But we sent 2 teams over to London to let those fans enjoy. I guess
the total's going up a full 2 points. I mean, they're betting it over.
I'm sure it'll rain there as well, and they can enjoy the coming off a win Jets.
All right, if you don't want to set your alarm, just make sure you have STN Sports. We still have the big bonus going on up to 500. Brings the sportsbook to you. You can get up early. You can place a bet right on your STN Sports app. But in that game, you're looking at it, and it's kind of an interesting matchup, though, because the Jets do have a win under their belt. So we'll see. But all right, let's move on. One of the really good games of the week, I think, is the Cleveland Browns against the LA Chargers. Chargers come off, as you said, that big win against the Raiders on Monday Night Football. Cleveland now has won 2 straight games. They only gave up 6 points against the Bears, 7 points against the Vikings. Defensively, they are really good. Baker Mayfield has had some troubles on the offensive side of the ball. Nick Chubb hasn't seemed to be the guy. It's, again, a 50-50 split with him and Kareem Hunt. But this is, to me, one of the best games of the week. And it's a very close match as far as ticket counts go. Only 58% of the tickets right now coming in on the Chargers.
Yeah, and essentially it's a pick-em game, but these are 2 defenses that have really played fantastic. Obviously the Chargers in their last 2 wins at Kansas City and then beating the Raiders really kind of dominated the Raiders in the whole first half of that game. Kind of didn't play a particularly good third quarter, let the Raiders get back into the game at 21-14 and then kind of dominated again in the fourth quarter. Cleveland, it's all about that run. If you can stop Chubb and Hunt in that running game, which the Chargers do have that front
that's
to be able to do
theirs,
so.
right.
And on the same side of things, Cleveland has been able to stop everybody, and obviously you're going to have to stop Austin Eckler, who was absolutely fantastic on Monday night. They do have the guys on the back end, and Allen and Williams. You also saw Jared Cook have a good game from a tight end standpoint. So this is obviously one of the better offenses that Cleveland has seen. They did do a good job against Kansas City in Week 1. But
they should have won that game.
Fell apart late.
Right.
But this is again a big spot. But again, the Chargers coming off what had to be a big emotional win over the Raiders at home on Monday night. Now get the short week with a big time opponent coming.
Yeah,
to
that's
town.
to me one of the best games of the week. We have to touch on our Las Vegas Raiders. The Bears come to town in this game. Bears did beat Detroit with Justin Fields. He played a much better game. He's been named the starter. I mean, Nagy on Tuesday said it's Andy Dalton, and as long as he's healthy, Dalton practice, he's healthy, and he does a complete 180, which I have to believe was Bears management saying enough's enough. Let's move forward with Justin Fields. He gets another road start here. He didn't do well in his road start against Cleveland, did much better at home against Detroit. 77% of the tickets are on the Raiders in this game.
And that 77% we know is going to go up. This game is going to continue to tick up with in favor of the Raiders.
I think the point spread will as well.
Them coming off the loss, their first loss of the season, didn't look good. Kind of some strange, delay with the lightning delay in LA, even with the stadium being a domed and covered stadium. And I think that kind of took both teams out of their kind of normal plan and what was going to go on. The game kind of had a ugly, slow feel to it to start. And the Raiders, that's kind of been a theme in their games. They've fallen down, I think, 14 points in three of their 4 games, and then find a way to storm back. And we talked about the Bears. They were expected to get healthy against the Lions team. That's what the Lions are kind of you're supposed to do is be able to beat on that team and get healthy. But yeah, this is going to be a much different situation for Fields traveling on the road. The rookie quarterbacks have not fared well. I think Mac Jones has pulled a win on the road, and obviously we talk about Zach Wilson and the Jets being able to pull their first win. But the rest
and Fields
of them,
got his first win.
This is not a spot that should be a good spot for the Bears to be able to travel as well as the Raiders coming off the loss should have a renewed energy and effort and focused on the Bears.
Yeah, and for the Bears, no Montgomery in that game, which I think will hurt as well. Another big game, I think, it's kind of a outside of the conference game for these two teams is Green Bay and Cincy. You've seen 82% of the tickets on Green Bay so far. Cincy, I think, is going to be a little bit healthier wide receiver as they should get Higgins back. Probably no Joe Mixon. But I think this is after Green Bay's first game. This is probably their toughest test, I think, at this point.
Well, and from a betting standpoint, this is a public Joe's versus pros game. We've seen a lot of sharp money on Cincinnati. This game opened up a little bit north of a field goal and has come down to a field goal, and we've had a significant amount of money on the Bengals, kind of to our surprise. Didn't necessarily think this was a game that was going to have that kind of flair to it. Public's obviously going to be on Green Bay in this spot. They've done what they've had to do outside of that first game against the Saints, go on the road and beat the Niners in magical fashion, and then really don't even let the Steelers in much of a game last week. And Cincinnati, despite the fact that Cincinnati's getting that pro money, they are just a week ago playing on Thursday night against the Jacksonville Jaguar team that was up on them 14-0 and had a chance to go 21-0 and being stopped at the goal line. And then we saw Cincinnati able to come back and have a big second half and close out the Jaguars. So, like I said, this is a pros versus Joes game, and of course the sports books will be cheering for the Bengals come Sunday, as this is going to be one of the bigger games from a standpoint of public money coming in on the Packers.
I think it's part of it. You look at Green Bay, I mean, their struggles on the road against Detroit where they got down 14-0 in a hurry, and I think you look at the Cincinnati offense. If you do have Higgins healthy with Boyd and Chase, they're a pretty dynamic bunch with Joe Burrow, so they can put some points on the board, and we'll see how it works out. We're going to touch on the two primetime games right now. The Sunday night game could easily be a preview of the AFC title game, and that's Buffalo at Kansas City. These two teams met in the playoffs last year. I think Buffalo's the better team right now. You look at Kansas City, who did get the cover last week against Philly. They've only covered 3 times in their last 15 games. That was one of them. But 65% of the tickets are on Buffalo right now. We've seen money on Buffalo both plus the points and on the money line. I think you're still going to see that happen. This is a huge game for both these teams because if Kansas City loses, they go to 2-3. A Buffalo win, Buffalo goes to 4-1, and based on tiebreakers for the best record in the AFC, Buffalo would have a 3-game lead through Week 5, which is kind of a big lead early in the season for home field advantage in the playoffs, and it's awfully tough to play in Buffalo in January.
Well, you look again. We just talked about the Packers, and now you talk about the Bills, and you wonder what happened to those two teams in Week 1. Well, how did the Bills get beat by the Steelers, and of what the Steelers that we're seeing through the last 3 weeks? It's just shocking that the Bills lost that team.
Reading a lot of press clippings, maybe.
The Bills have actually destroyed their last two opponents, winning down in Miami and then a 40-0 win over Houston, and doing all the things that they're supposed to do on offense. This is a different team than the two teams that they've beaten the last couple of weeks.
Right.
Houston really has no semblance of an offense, and without Tagovailoa, the Dolphins' offense has been really bad as well. So this is going to be a challenge for their defense, and I know all the money's been coming on the Bills, and all the hype is for the Bills to go back and kind of revenge their AFC Championship loss. But this is still the Kansas City Chief team that can put up points. And against the Eagles last week, for a while, it felt like whoever has the ball last is going to go up and down the field. And the Chiefs just find a way. They find a way to get that one key turnover, the one key sack, and then you give Mahomes the ball back, and now you're down 14 points. You're down 10 points. And kind of the thing that the Chiefs have been doing poorly is turning the ball over too often. I think they've got 8 turnovers on the year. I think Mahomes has got 4 interceptions, which is not something that he normally does. So I think if they can continue to hold on to the ball and not turn the ball over, this is still going to be a good spot for the Chiefs.
Yeah, we've seen some unders on some of the primetime games over the last week. I don't think there's going to be too many people betting this game under. I think it's interesting, too, because, I mean, you look at Buffalo and how dynamic they are, and seeing the ticket count kind of favor that side. There's a possibility we could need the Chiefs that night. I can't remember the last time over the last few years in a home primetime game that the Chiefs played that we needed them to win.
Well, and from a power rating standpoint, this game was definitely over a field goal the last several weeks as you looked at things. And then the way that the Chiefs have somewhat struggled, well, in their wins, they've still somewhat struggled. And the way the Bills have looked, this game is now under a field goal or right at that field goal standpoint. So could easily make the argument that the game should be more than a field goal. And one other kind of interesting caveat to this game is we're not necessarily sure if we're going to see Josh Gordon suit up as a Chief.
I think
he's
we
practicing
will.
and may play, and Hardman and Pringle haven't stepped out. Robinson, some of those other secondary receivers. It's been the Kelsey show in a couple games, and Tyreek Hill went bananas last week. So if they can add another body like Gordon, even if he can make a play or two here or there, and they're big plays, it's going to add another dynamic to that offense.
Weapon for Mahomes is pretty cool. Now we'll touch on the Monday night game. That's Indy and Baltimore. 79% of the tickets are on Baltimore. They're around a touchdown favorite in this game. They're still a really good team. I mean, you get Bateman back in the mix, and you add some of these young wideouts. Hollywood Brown had a big play. I think the defense is really good. It's Lamar Jackson on primetime against Carson Wentz in Indy, who did get a win last week against Miami. But again, close to 80% of the tickets are on the Ravens in this game.
And again, we talk about that percentage continuing to go up on the Raiders. I think it goes up here. This Colts team, they do have a solid defense. They do have a good running game, but trusting that quarterback position, you want to have a guy that can go score points for you, and Wentz just hasn't been able to do that the last couple weeks. They did pull the upset in Miami to kind of maybe bring that team back together. Baltimore, I'm still not entirely sold on who the Ravens are. The last couple of weeks, we saw them barely beat the Lions on the road. Then they go to Denver, who we talked about was one of those softer 3-0 Denver winning teams. So this is another team that
they've played 2 straight unders too, where they haven't scored a lot of points.
I mean, the home win on I think it was actually a Monday night or it was a Sunday night. Their home win over the Chiefs is still kind of what's driving the play on them, winning there. But again, this is another soft matchup that, from a book standpoint, we'll be needing the Colts to cover that touchdown.
Yeah, I think it's a fun schedule this week, guys. Don't forget there's that early game as well. We're going to come back and we're going to do our final segment, and that's going to be on college football. We're going to touch on the good, the bad, and the ugly. One of our favorite segments. We'll be right back from the bookmaking podcast, Bookends. We'll see you soon.
Locals, here's how easy it is to start betting on games with the STN Sports App. They have sign-up locations across Las Vegas, so no matter where you are, you're less than 5 minutes away from getting started. They have convenient withdrawal and deposit options, so you can access your money at any time, even from the comfort of home. And once you're in, you're in. You can bet on all major sports even as the action is happening with a huge in-play wagering menu. So download the STN Sports app today and get started betting with the local favorite for over 40 years.
Hey guys, we're back for our final segment of Bookends, and we're going to touch on college football and then dive into, again, the good and the bad and the ugly, which is one of Jay and my's favorite segments. First, let's look at, there's a bunch of, top 25 matchups this week. Oklahoma, Texas. You look at Oklahoma ranked 6th, Texas ranked 21st. It's almost dead even as far as ticket counts go right now. Oklahoma's about a 3.5 point favorite in this game. 51% of the tickets are on Texas. I think it's going to flip, though. I think it's going to get closer to, I think Oklahoma's offense is too dynamic. I think you'll see a high percentage on the Sooners here.
Yeah, kind of a short favorite with Oklahoma here. I think this game's got a really interesting storyline, though. The Texas quarterback, Casey Thompson, his father started Oklahoma. He's from Oklahoma. His brother played for Oklahoma 2 years ago, and he originally committed to Oklahoma and then changed his commitment and is at Texas and now starring at Texas. And Texas had a couple big wins, but to be able to play his home state and his father's alma mater and brother's alma mater in the Red River Shootout is going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I think the next one, number 13, Arkansas, number 17, Ole Miss. Kind of interesting. Both these teams come off losses to big programs.
Yeah,
week before.
Last week these teams were both hyped up going to play Alabama and Georgia. And both do what teams do when they go to play Alabama and Georgia, and that's come home with a loss. And not only a loss, but both teams were kind of embarrassed. Arkansas gets shut out at Georgia, and Ole Miss kind of got down real early at Alabama and was able to come back a little bit. Matt Corral really hurt his chances from a Heisman Trophy standpoint in that game. But we'll see these teams can bounce back. And obviously in the SEC, if you're able to kind of run the rest of the table, they may be able to find themselves back at the top of the conference.
And I think, looking at those two games last week, the bettors were so impressed with Georgia and Alabama. Those are two of the highest ticket counts in all of college football this week. Georgia against Auburn, 91% of the tickets are on Georgia. You look at Bama against A&M, 93% of the tickets are on Bama. I think in the Georgia-Auburn game first, it's kind of a tough test for Auburn or Georgia defensively. I think they won a close game against Clemson 10-3. This is probably the best defense they're going to face is the Auburn Tiger defense, but again, the bettors are backing them big time in
Auburn,
this case.
An incredibly tough place to play. Auburn coming off a big win after getting down early to LSU, were able to come back there. Bo Nix did a great job. But again, this Georgia defense, they're on another level, back-to-back shutouts and obviously allowing 3 points to Clemson. They're the number one defense in the country, and I think that this momentum that this team has is just continuing to build. I think again they're a pretty big favorite here, almost a 17-point favorite. But I still think this is a game they're going to win and continue to set that matchup for Georgia.
Could be one of an under game that we see this week. A Bama game too. I mean, Bama's a huge favorite, over 2-score favorite against A&M, and the betting public really is.
Yeah, Texas A&M again. Since they lost the quarterback position, they really kind of struggled to move the ball. And again, another big favorite game for Alabama. But you talk about, again, every kind of week in college football, it's tough to get up week after week after week. And sometimes these big teams kind of throw one of those squeakers and somebody pulls a shocker on the road in college football.
Another one that's I think is a great matchup, it's the Penn State-Iowa game. 66% of the tickets are on Iowa. Both these teams are really good. They're ranked 3 and 4. You may see, one of these teams be one of the final 4. I think it's a great matchup.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of people upset that college game day didn't make their way out to Iowa, and they're going to Dallas for the Oklahoma game. But this talk about a defensive matchup. Iowa number 2 in the country, Penn State number 3 in the country in defense. So points may be at a premium in this matchup.
Old-fashioned slugfest here, where not a lot of points scored. Last one we're going to touch on is number 9 Michigan, who's still undefeated at 5-0. I thought they looked good last week. I think they finally have a quarterback. 84% of the tickets are on Michigan against Nebraska.
Yeah, again, they beat up Wisconsin. We've talked about Wisconsin having the struggles on offense, really being able to keep up with anybody from an offensive standpoint. Michigan rolls in there, now going 5-0, 4 wins at home, first win on the road. Now they travel to Nebraska, where Scott Frost again continues to try and make his mark. Adrian Martinez has been fantastic.
This would be a huge win for him. They really
hasn't been turning the ball over. We'll see what what Nebraska's offense can do, but this game is going to come down to that Nebraska front seven being able to stop that Michigan running game.
Yep. So those are the college games this week that we kind of touched on. Now we're going to get into our favorite segment, the sports gaming, good, bad, and the ugly. I can hear that whistle in the background right now. First is the good. I mean, next week, we're not going to have another segment before they drop the puck, before it's ice time. The Knights open up against the Kraken, so that has to be the good for us. I know we talked about it. We're excited about it. It's going to be fun. Knights Kraken on the 12th at T-Mobile. Don't forget your sports app.
I want to watch before you even get to the Knights Kraken. We can watch the Penguins and Lightning. Whether it's hockey season and
when do the Blackhawks play?
It's
Wednesday.
We're excited to get things back on the ice, and obviously the Knights in that kind of kickoff, drop the puck on Wednesday night against the newest franchise in the NHL, being the Kraken, and the Knights are obviously a heavy favorite, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Kraken play this year and if their expansion year can be as successful as what the Golden Knights was.
I think that's why they bet them on the future book. You saw a lot of future book tickets kind of looking at how successful the Knights are, but it's definitely nighttime, so it's exciting for us.
And it's the new Golden Knights, I guess. Love Marc-Andre Fleury, and since the inaugural season, he's been kind of the leader and the captain of the team, and the shift here to going to Leonard and a little bit different makeup of the team, but again, still love these guys and be cheering for them on the ice. And I know both of us attend a lot of the games and stuff like that. So again, just happy to have them back on the ice.
Absolutely. Before we do the bad and the ugly, just really quick too, I think you have to put the Aces in the good right now. They're able to come back, even that series now against the Mercury 2-2. They've got a chance with one win on Friday night to get to the WNBA Finals. So I'd put that in my good category as well for being down 2-1.
What about golf? Pairing up Koepka and DeChambeau.
Right.
I mean, maybe that should be in the ugly, but I'll throw it in the good. What is it? The day after Thanksgiving, we watch these guys tee off. Hopefully,
we'll have in play for every round in that too.
See guys. how the fireworks match up there, and maybe the war of words, or if they've made up. But what an incredible golf matchup that we'll have coming in late November.
I know we're getting away from ourselves, but also you've got. I guess you could put it in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's the Fury Wilder fight. I mean, the press conference, the way they were dressed had to be the ugly. But, I mean, it's going to be, it's the trilogy, the one draw, one domination by Fury. And now you've got these two guys fighting again on Saturday night here in Vegas. So
yeah, Fury seems to have all the confidence in the world. He's a pretty big favorite here, but we're getting...
Just takes one of these in the heavyweight division.
A lot of money on Wilder. And again, not just the fight, but we got the rounds, a lot of props up on that stuff. So check out the app for all the available action on the Fury Wilder fight.
Now I guess it's the ugly.
Well, you got to go to your bad.
All right, I'll go with my bad first.
Go to your bad.
All right.
I know you.
My bad is Garrett Cole and the Yankees. The Yankees went out and spent all that money on Garrett Cole for a game like Tuesday, the wild card game. His shortest stint in his career, in his major league career, 2 innings, 2 batters, 4 runs, 2 home runs. Didn't do what the Yankees paid him to do. I know he hadn't pitched well in the second half of the season, but you go out and you spend that money for a Garrett Cole. You expect him to dominate in that game, and I think he was the ugly for the bettors because they bet him heavily in that game. We were huge Red Sox fans. I think Cole let down Yankee Nation in that game with that performance of, again, just 2 innings and 2 batters.
If I could throw out a bad, I'll go to the San Diego Padres and just their epic collapse in kind of the second half of the baseball season, and what ended up costing Jace Tingler his job, and they had to fire their manager. Again, all the bats that they had there, and Tatis and Machado, and that lineup, and the pitching staff that they had, and the way that they started the season, they were good coming out of the box. For them to fall apart, and again, tough division, and obviously what we saw the Giants and Dodgers able to do, but I think the Padres will look for them to find a way to rebuild next year.
I think one of the big keys with them is it appears that they have some internal problems as well. So whoever the new manager is, maybe they do end up dealing a piece or two to get something they need. But now the ugly, which I know that you really did some homework on this and you had fun with it, and so I'm just going to leave it at that and turn it over to you.
I'm gonna look to the college football schedule this week when I talk about the ugly, and there's a game on the board that I don't think that we'll ever see this type of matchup again, and if you're not aware of this matchup, and ready to watch this game, it's shocking. But there's 130 teams, right? 130 teams in college football. The 128th ranked team is our UNLV Running Rebels at 0-5. The 129th ranked team is the UConn Huskies. and the 130th ranked team is UMass. And UConn and UMass are playing each other this week, putting a matchup of the two worst teams in all of college football.
And that game's on the board.
And you can watch that. And,
you can bet on it.
Bet on that. How awesome is that? That
right.
We literally have the ugliest matchup in college football, and it's available for you to pick a winner.
It is. So I don't even know how I follow that, guys, but don't forget, again, get signed up for STN Sports. Still have that bonus going on. It's a great time, as we talked about, with so many different things going on, especially, early football at 6:30 a.m. on Sunday. You've got the Aces playing. You've got college. You've got the Knights who are back in action, and a bunch of other hockey games. So get signed up for STN Sports right now. Easy, dependable. Don't forget, it's not just the station's properties. El Cortez, Wildfire Gaming. Come on in, get signed up. We'll get you signed up in a matter of minutes. He's Jason. This is our buddy Teaser. Hopefully there's some dogs barking this week. I'm Chucky. We'll see you guys next week on the Sportsbook Making Podcast, Bookends.